And here we are. Good evening and welcome to this special edition of Showtime TV. I'm your host, Omar Rashada. Today's topic of discussion is a very serious topic of discussion. Myself, along with the board, decided to come up with this particular subject. The topic of discussion is women speaking on mental health and violence. And I have some distinguished guests this evening. I have from the Delaware Coalition Against Domestic Violence, I have Marianne Kenville-Moore. I have Monica Potter, and I have Dr. Linda Arrey. So I'm gonna give each one of you ladies an opportunity, and I also have Sonia Jones, who I'm just gonna be admitting. I'll give each one of you ladies an opportunity to introduce yourselves very briefly and just let the audience know what is it that you do. So we're gonna start off with Marianne.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to be with you all tonight. I'm Marianne Kenville-Moore, and as Omar had indicated, I work with the Delaware Coalition Against Domestic Violence. I'm getting some feedback.
Okay, yes. Someone. Sorry, I think you might need to mute. Okay. All right. Go ahead, Marianne.
No, I think we're still having the issue. Is it good? Okay, good. All right. You have to get through some of these technical bumps in the road, right, before we can get rolling. But now we should be good. But again, Marianne, and I am with the Coalition Against Domestic Violence. And I have been working with the coalition for over 10 years now as the Director of Advocacy and Policy. But I approach this work and I come to this work of domestic violence because of my other professional identity, which is as a social worker. And I provided direct services throughout the state, primarily in Newcastle County, but also throughout the state, working with early on with children who experienced domestic violence and were exposed to domestic violence. But later when I worked at the Department of Justice in their Victim Witness Service Unit. I also, as an LCSW, have had the fortune to continue my career and learn a lot about trauma and services specifically, and strategies and techniques and therapy specifically to improve the healing process for individuals exposed to trauma and to assist them in their growth in life. And so just wonderful opportunity for us to have this conversation, and happy to talk more about the intersections of violence and mental health and what we can do to one, prevent violence, but also how we can help those who've experienced it overcome its impacts.
Awesome, awesome. All right, Monica, PhD candidate. Go ahead, PhD candidate.
So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Monica Shockley Porter, and I am a native of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So I am a new Delawarean. I've been here for about 3 years, but in the 3 years that I've been here, I've been able to do a lot of work with the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, research and also advocacy work for Black women and girls here in Delaware. I've also been able to be a part of the Urban League, Network Delaware, Fund for Women, and more recently, I became a part of the Delaware Alliance Against Sexual Violence. I serve on their board. So my passion area has been for years women and girls. I'm unapologetic about that, even though I love my husband and I love my brothers. Just very passionate about Black women and girls. In particular, I have about 20 years of experience in social services. And more recently, I served as a business development director for Dover Behavioral Health. And now I have transitioned to Capital School District on public relations.
So Monica, did you sleep? You're involved with so much stuff. How do you sleep?
Oh my goodness. I'm also a PhD candidate, so I don't get much sleep.
Oh man, yeah,
yes.
You keep it going. You keep it going. All right.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Linda, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself. What is it that you do?
Hi, ladies. Hi, Rashard. So I am Dr. Linda Arrey, and a little women's, professional women's nonprofit organization. We're called WILD, and WILD is for Women in Leadership Development and Empowerment. We've been around since 2011. And our primary pillars are mental wellness, physical wellness, spiritual wellness, and financial literacy. So we started up teaching women how to diversify their income by creating alternate sources of businesses so they can create financial flexibility. But we soon realized that there is no point being wealthy when you are broken in all the other pillars. So for us to fully execute as business women, entrepreneurs, CEOs, career women, mothers, sisters, whatever you have, we have to also ensure that we're grooming the whole person concept. I can't teach you how to make money if you are broken mentally, if you are broken spiritually, if you are broken physically. So how do we empower women to make sure that they are mentally sane, spiritually connected, whatever your spiritual beliefs are? Do you connect to somebody? For me, it's God. Everybody has their own thing, but are you spiritually connected? Are you physically healthy?
Mhm.
And we're not talking about, the physical is also internal, how we eat, and if you don't like what you see in the mirror every day, what can we do about it? And then financially loaded, because we believe, I believe in financial flexibility. If it's preaching the Bible, I don't see why I can't preach it. So we don't have to be, broken and both in our well-being and in our pockets. So we're really promoting healthy living physically and financially. So I do a lot of work in the communities. When I'm not, I said when I'm not in 6-inch in boardroom meetings, I wear combat boots. So I'm a major in the United States Air Force. I'm a Medical Service Corps officer. So that's the other part of me. And outside of everything that I do, my most important ministry are my 2 little girls and my husband. It's home. So that's just a little bit about me.
Wow, so you're a very busy schedule as well.
Trust me.
Awesome, awesome. All right, Sonia, if you can introduce yourself and let us know what are the things that you do. I know you keep it busy, and I see you on Facebook all the time. You got your own radio show, so talk to us about it. Unmute yourself. You're muted. There you go.
Can you hear me?
You're muted.
Can you
Yep,
hear
I
me?
got you. Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I got you.
I don't, I commend these, these ladies up in here, but I'm just the average, 5'5", 145, Black woman out here. Little bit about me. I am a Lions Club member. I am one of those, what do they call it, boots on the grounds. I am out here, community activist. Way before my son was murdered last year. Mother, I'm working on bringing back my radio station. I'm working on bringing that back. And right now, what I'm focusing primarily on is my stage play. And the thing that I'm touching more on are the things that I'm dealing with: grief, depression, and forgiveness. And forgiveness is one of those things that I tend to laugh at a lot of the times, because I used to be the one that if you do this to me, if you do this to my child, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to retaliate. And when it happened, I did the complete opposite. I literally asked people to pray for my son's murderer. So I'm working hard with this stage play. I reached out to a young man, and he's extended his hand to help me get this thing launched. So primarily, that's what it is I am focusing on right now. I've been a Delawarean since 2008, originally from Philadelphia, born and raised. Did all of my schooling there, but that's my goal right now, to get this message out about domestic abuse and this violent crime that's going on. I want people to understand what it feels like. We can talk about it. And I used to be on the other end trying to it's really hard to wrap your brains around it. I understand death, I would tell people, but that death, to have a child removed from you, is a different type of feeling. So my play is primarily to try to get people to feel something like what those in Texas, something like those in Brooklyn are going through right now. I've been there and I'm still going through it.
Mhm.
So
So
that's pretty much.
so you said your son was murdered last year. So did you get a call? What was that call? I mean, I can only imagine when you got that call from the police or the hospital. I don't know who gave you a call and told you that your son had died. Man, that's got to be probably one of the worst experiences ever for a mother or a family member. And you talked about forgiveness because the first thing that most families would do is retribution. Oh, we got to get this dude. He's gonna take away my family member. What? Okay, it's like that. But man, you're a strong mother.
That was I used to always tell people no one wanted, my jail sentence. I was adamant on, if anyone decided to harm my children, once you go to jail, that was it, because it would cost nothing for me to pay somebody a carton of cigarettes every month to just whoop your behind. That's it. To just make sure. But once the tables turned, I did the complete opposite. I was literally gearing up to interview Michael Jordan's sister. She was to come to the radio station, and I had a chef all prepared and everything. And while I was waiting for her to arrive, my cell phone was just going off. It was my daughter, and she always calls me every time for. I mean, she could break a nail, and it was like the highest moment of, I need to call the FBI and figure that one out.
Mhm.
But anyway, she kept calling, and I listened to the voicemail message, and it was her crying. And I could barely make out what it was she was saying. So I went outside, and as my guests were arriving, I was outside on the phone with her telling me that my son had died in a car crash. And it didn't make sense. Like I needed her to help me make sense of what it was she was telling me, because it didn't make sense. You know, in my mind, it was a joke. Maybe she thought that was his car. She really wasn't sure,
Mhm.
but it was him. It wasn't until, so let me go back, July 8th of last year, my 36-year-old son was allegedly, he had died in a car crash. July the 9th, my 26-year-old turned 27. It wasn't until 2 days later that what we thought was a accidental death was a homicide. What had happened was, once my son was removed from the vehicle that had crashed into the tree, they had found out he was murdered. His person in question had hit the main artery in his thigh. Um, and within 2 weeks, before the end of July, he was apprehended. Um, but what through my mind was just, I can't explain it. The pain, the grief, the crying, the whys, was he in pain? Did he know he was dying? Did he cry out? If I was only there, the if was hell. It was torturous. To blink, every time I blinked, I would see my son's face. And every time I saw my son's face, I would question God, because I literally thought I was being punished. Like, that's torturous. Every time you blink to see someone that you can never touch and hear and feel and smell, never ever again. That right there was just, the depression started to come in, because I literally wanted to kill myself. Um, I wanted to unearth my son. Literally, I wanted to dig up my son's grave. And I knew that if I did, I wouldn't like what I saw. That was one. Two, I didn't do it because I really believed that someone was going to put me in a mental institution. And that's not where I needed to be. It took me a very long time to come to grips that my son's new home is a place I would never, ever be allowed to visit. And he doesn't even know that he's there. That pain right there sits with me from now every day until the day I die. That's hell, you know. So that's
Well,
pretty much
definitely.
how I got to find out what I could do. Actually, the young man decided to take the case to trial. So next Monday we go to trial, and even though I forgive him, I still don't forgive what he done to me. The young man in question has no idea that the two sons that I had mentioned, the
Mhm.
youngest one and the oldest one, the youngest one years ago, he had jumped. The oldest one he had murdered. So he has no idea until next Monday when I get to stand before him and tell him how he devastated my family.
Okay, yeah, definitely prayers go out to your family. Dr. Linda, over this weekend, I was watching the news in Philadelphia. 40 people were shot, 14 were killed. Of course, you got the situation in Buffalo where 10 people were killed, 10 African Americans were killed. You got the situation in Texas with the school where 21 people were murdered. And I just saw on the news a couple of days, a 10-year-old was arrested for, I guess, planning to do a mass shooting at his school. Do we live in a culture of violence? I want to start off with Dr. Linda, if this question makes sense, because it seems like you step on somebody's shoe, and they're ready to fight you, you get in an argument with somebody, they want to pull out a gun. I mean, are these the times that we're living in now?
I would say times have definitely changed, especially in the United States. Times have changed because the amount of deaths and not accidental death. We're talking about deaths caused by one person overtaking other lives. The mass shootings, it just keeps increasing and becoming so rampant over the years. So when you say, are we living in a society of violence? I believe there've always been violence. Maybe it's because of the way media is being reported now. It's now more visible to the human eye. Maybe it's rampant when you look at the data. The statistics doesn't really show that there are more mass, because mass shooting is what I vote for. So there have been cases, where these shootings have been taking place. We're just seeing them now more frequently because, as I said, the way media is being reported. But we also want to look back to at what point did these become this rampant? And what changed that trajectory in the society that we're living in? Some would say politics, some would say the economy. Whatever it is, we're definitely seeing change. We're seeing a lot of people living in fear, and I think while we focus on the violence going on, it's so important for us to dip into the root cause. What is it that is really triggering people to disvalue human life this much? A lot of the mass shootings, we say, is mental health issues. But what is the cause of that? The mental health issues, And so I really think that us as a society, we need to show more love and kindness. This may seem so minute and everything, but I think we really are supposed to show more love and kindness. Politics has divided us so much that, and it's not helping with all the mental health issues going on. It's not helping with the root causes of the mental health issues and the reactions of the mental health issues. And notwithstanding, I'm not one of those that believe everything I hear in the news, right? Not every mass shooting or every murder is because of mental health issues. I'm very aware of that. But I think that if we can forget politics and embrace humanity, we can, as a society, eliminate or possibly eradicate these rampant killings everywhere. We saw the case of Texas, where a roommate just held his roommate on gunpoint. This is somebody they were college mates that went to school together, played football together, moved in together. And then one day he just woke up, held his roommate at gunpoint, robbed him, tied him in a body bag, And wherever he was going to dump him and say, today's the day you will die. But when he packed at a gas station, this gentleman was able to escape. And this just happened about 3 weeks ago. Then Uvalde just happened, a few days ago. So I really think that the violence in our society is so rampant that we need to acknowledge the violence, but focus our attention on what the root cause is. We talk about mental health. Is everything mental health? And if it is mental health, what are we doing about it as a society, as a people?
Right. Right. Monica, someone else want to go before I ask the next question?
I did. I just thought that as a follow-up to that, I think that mental health piece is such an important piece because it is, again, blaming the symptom and addressing, focusing on a symptom rather than addressing that root cause. And we know that violence and oppression have been used in our culture to dominate other people for hundreds and hundreds of years. And that violence that started with the birth of this nation, we see that continuing to ripple in our communities. And as long as we continue to perpetrate systemic racism and systemic violence, we will see significant levels of violence in our communities. We've been able to document that through public health study, through criminal justice study, through many ways of looking at this issue. And I think to the point that Sonia and Linda shared, there is an increased access to firearms. We know that at the beginning of the pandemic, the ATF and other systems have made it abundantly clear that access to firearms significantly increased. And what we're seeing in our criminal justice responses is the danger that comes with that increased access to firearm, which, again, not wanting to get into politics, but when people have access to weapons of mass destruction, they can perpetrate these types of events. And it's so difficult to predict these things and to be able to prevent them if we continue to just follow the model that we've been using over the last 30 years.
Right. And so Marianne, while I got you on, I want you to talk about domestic violence. What is domestic violence? What are the different types of domestic violence? People think it's just physical, but it's more than just physical.
It is, and there are all different situations, right, that fall into that class of domestic violence. But when the coalition looks at these issues of violence within families, again, we really have been learning more about those more extreme types of cases. And so we see physical violence. We see individuals who try to coerce and control their partners, isolating them from family members and friends. We hear a lot about acts that interfere with people's ability to maintain and manage their own finances, whether that's being able to go get a job or complete their education, people interfering with and taking possession of your finances. I worked with women who, although they worked full time, their direct deposits would be deposited in their partner's account and they never had access to finances. And if you don't have control over money, you then don't have personal agency about even the type of food you can have and whether or not you can purchase medications and survive and care for your children. We also see a lot of emotional and psychological abuse, and to the point of violence. One of the things that we know, it's an unfortunate reality still that we see over and over again, is that we might have relationships that have been unhealthy with emotional abuse or psychological control and manipulation, perhaps even something that the young people are calling gaslighting, which I recognize as well as gaslighting, and that they think that they'll just leave the relationship and that it wasn't abusive. It might have been unhealthy, it might have been harmful to them emotionally, but it wasn't abusive. And it's when they end that relationship and create that cutoff that other person feels like they've lost control and then escalates. And so to the point that we were talking about earlier with mass shootings, I train police officers a few times a year around mental health crisis because 40 to 45% of all mass shootings are connected to domestic violence. The mass violence is occurring because of it being part of that pattern of control. And if I can't have you, no one will. And if you aren't going to live, with me, then we'll both end. And so we also see that individuals who have histories of mental health are at greater risk of being targeted for domestic violence because their partners can often use that history of, well, you're crazy and no one will believe you. And what do you know? Oh, you're just making, that was just you hallucinating again. We see a lot of abuse and even more significant impact for people who've experienced mental health, issues before. And so it really can be very difficult for individuals to seek help and to find the support that they need. Again, oftentimes people blame themselves and feel very ashamed and isolated, which makes it hard then to seek help, right? And to get the treatment that you need. I mean, Sonia talked about the trauma that she experienced, what she has been having to live with those flashbacks and those visions of her son. And people suffer significantly. And one of the ways that many of us cope, one of the legitimate ways, and if you watch TV or any sports event, you see it all the time, is to use substances to cope. And so we also see co-occurrence with people who experience violence, have mental health issues, and also perhaps have substance use issues. And so our advocates work really hard to try to connect people to the supports and services that can help people address a variety of needs that they have. And our focus really is to start where the person is and to focus on safety and to center on what they want to accomplish. It used to be that many of our service programs would encourage people to leave relationships. We don't do that. We really want to work with people where they are and how they think their lives will be managed the safest. And so for many women and individuals, men and other people that we work with, we focus on that safety and harm reduction, what we can do to address their most important needs.
Right. I want to go to Monica. Monica, a lot of people, even when we talk about domestic violence, but especially with these mass shootings, people often say, did you see the signs? Did you see warning signs that this person was going to commit such a violent act, or this man was such an abuser, if you will? Can you give us examples of maybe what are some warning signs that may indicate someone maybe not be feeling so well, or someone may be an abuser, if you will?
So those are really good questions. I know if we want to start first with just some warning signs that someone may be experiencing some difficulty with mental health or with behavioral health. Some signs may be isolation. If this was a person who liked to be around a lot, like to do things, like to interact, and all of a sudden they're isolating, they're not answering their phone, they're not as social as they would have been prior to. Also look for signs that something took place. Like we have our friend here, Sonia, who shared that she's going through depression because she lost her son, which Sonia, I thank you so much for sharing your story. My mother is on Facebook Live right now, like watching. So I know that she can relate because we also, it's been 10 years since we lost my brother, but everything that you described that you felt were some of the things that I've heard my mother share, that she felt the same way when my brother passed. And even still, it's been over 10 years and still coping with the anniversaries, the times of the year. Like those are all things that can trigger someone to have concerns with their mental health. Just also, if you find that someone is reaching out for help, take things seriously. I know when I talk with young folks about like suicide prevention, a lot of times they're like, oh, that person's just seeking attention, or they don't really mean it. They're not going to themselves. Take every anytime someone tells you or shares with you that they're feeling down or feeling depressed or they don't want to live anymore, they're not attention seeking most times. It's a cry for help because they really do need help and support. And then I think the second question that you were talking about is just with domestic violence, with signs that maybe a friend may be in trouble. Some of the same things, like if you see the isolation, this friend that used to hang out with a lot, now she's not hanging out, he or she's not hanging out with you as much as they would. They maybe joke about things that are going on in their relationship, but share some things with you in a joking way. And you're like, oh, wait a minute, that doesn't sound, like that they're in a good situation or that they're in a safe situation. Also, just being in tune to changes in personality, being in tune just to any warning signs that you may see when you know someone. And then visible bruises. I mean, that's a telltale sign. I had a close friend of mine who was involved in a domestic violence relationship, and I would see different things on her, different injuries, but she would always have an excuse for it. She would tell me that, oh, I did this or I did that. And I'm like, she's having a lot of, different injuries or different accidents. So I know that that's a biggie as well.
All right. Marianne talked about the word trauma. I think it's very significant. When you look at the situation like in Buffalo, when you look at the situation like in Texas, or a mother who lost her son or to violence, I think trauma counseling is very significant. There may be those who may seek counseling, there may be those who don't seek counseling. So if any one of you could speak on the significance, even if Sonia, you want to chime in as well, on the importance of getting counseling, you get an individual therapy, because something like the mass shooting, something like domestic violence, you need a support system, and you need to be able to express yourself. You need to talk these things out, because if you keep it in, build up, it could be a rough ride. So if any one of you want to talk about the significance of getting individual therapy, individual counseling, if you will.
So I was going to mention too, a lot of times we have to look at vicarious trauma as well. Like when we're watching the news and when we're taking in a lot of these things, I know I give myself a cap, like of how much I'm going to take in, because that's traumatic in itself. Like we're not even directly involved in these incidents, but you're taking on this trauma. Or as you ladies know from working in social services and social work and community work, like you're picking up vicarious trauma too, on top of your own personal traumas that you have experienced maybe in your childhood or in adulthood that you're working through too. So I would caution as well, like as we're dealing with all of these things that are going on in the world, that we guard ourselves as well from that. And I'm going to go on mute so that the other ladies that look like you want to talk.
Okay, sure. Anybody?
I can go back. Let me go back to the suicide. I love life. I love everything about life. Everything there is about life. To wake up one day and to be like, oh, whew, okay. And before I could put my feet on the floor, it's like I got hit, and I can't describe who, what, when hit me. I just know I got hit, and I have to lay back down because the tears are just the disbelief that I just literally woke up happy, and then within seconds, I'm just breaking down because I don't have my son. I don't know what day it is. What is my name? What am I supposed to be doing right now? Like everything, my world just got shattered. Suicide, I never been one of those to even, like, that was the first thing on my mind. So attention wise, I wasn't seeking attention. I literally stopped me from wanting to kill myself, because my mind was always set that if I jumped off the building, God would say, no, not this time. I'll be in that wheelchair, but I'll be alive. If I drowned, I may be, a little at a disadvantage, but I'll be alive. And that right there is what stopped me. But I did have to seek therapy. I had to tell the DA that I literally was thinking I was losing my mind. So he was the one that made contact with someone to reach out to me to seek therapy. But before I did it, I reached out to a few people because it's very hard for me to go to someone who's not in my situation. It's easy for somebody to tell you how to raise a child when you don't have children. It's easy to tell someone how to what to do in a marriage if you've never been married. If you've never lost a child, it's not that easy for you to tell me what it is I'm going to be expecting moving forward. So I had to seek therapy because I thought I was losing my mind. I reached out to a few people who had advised me to not quit. I'm gonna tell you, it's gonna be difficult. In my mind, I'm like, when I got there, the questions was just like, okay, I don't want to talk anymore, but I had to keep fighting every week. I had to keep going just so I can get over the hump of this is a neutral person I can talk to, and I can spew whatever I can spew out and get some sort of insight, some sort of help to help me make it just from that day until the next day. But just by the grace of God and having someone to talk to. And let me just go back again. When I was growing up, there was no Black people going to therapy. We laughed and we mocked and we teased, when we saw the white Americans going to therapy. They were just happy to sit down and lay on somebody's couch and spew their business. We didn't do that. In the household, it was always what goes on in the house stays in the house, which is bad because if there's a lot of things that's going on that is traumatic that you need to unleash, you have no one to unleash it to. So that was another reason why I had to seek therapy. It got me through some things, but it opened up some doors I wasn't prepared for. So it set me back a little, but I'm still open to going to counseling. I have to, because I have to get whatever's in me out. My son will always be there, but just having someone to talk to express these deep rooted feelings, that I don't know where to go with them. It's a lot. And I would tell anyone, I would encourage anyone who is in a situation that needs someone to talk to, talk. My mother used to always say, if you can't talk to me, talk to somebody. And if you can't find that one friend, talk to somebody. Anything is better than having it bottled up because you may explode, and you may explode to the point where you may hurt you and somebody else.
The Dr. Linda, how important is it that programs be established in regards to having violence preventions in the school, maybe violence prevention in the churches, maybe violence prevention in the community centers throughout the community, has some type of courses or classes on violence prevention?
If you don't mind, I just want to add a little.
Oh, sure.
I totally agree with everything Sonia shared, Monica shared. But I do want to add that, we owe it to ourselves to embrace our emotions, especially when we're going through grief. These emotions that we don't understand, it's okay to really be present with you. Whether they're emotions that bring you laughter, emotions that bring you tears and pain, we owe it to ourselves to embrace them. And sometimes we may not even understand them, and also show ourselves grace and patience as we go through grief. I lost my sister in 2018. She was never sick. I had just talked to her about 2 hours. And the next thing I had a call was she passed out. She was dead in 30 minutes. She was a healthy 42-year-old. She died from a bilateral pulmonary embolism. And it's not something we're expected. I'm saying this was a healthy 42 years old. And, it's almost 4 years and it's not a lot of time, but I think that some of the things that I'm learning, because it's a journey, we're learning, and I encourage people is just show yourself grace. Certain things you believe you have overcome, those same emotions that make you cry today may make you laugh tomorrow when you think about your experiences with your loved one. Let's embrace them and show ourselves grace. And when it comes to therapy, we owe it to ourselves and our community to be accepting, even when we don't understand it. The reason a lot of people, particularly Black people, don't go to therapy as Sonia shared, it's not something a lot of people grew up with. It's not the culture. So now it's more common in the Black community. You see a lot of Black people now. It's a lot better than it used to be. But some people are still trying to get used to it. Some people still feel ashamed to say that I'm going to therapy. So we also owe it to ourselves to create environments where people feel safe to say that I need help. Whether it's in your sister circle, in your family, in the workplace, wherever it is, it's our social responsibility to make people feel safe enough to say that I need help, even if we don't want to listen to it. But we're trusting them and creating an environment where they can go seek therapy and don't feel judged. And then as a people, it's my individual responsibility to say that I am going anyway, even if my community doesn't understand it, because I value my life that much. And I say for those who are really struggling with their environments, even if you have to call and book without your friends knowing, your family knowing, that's okay. Seek the help you need, and with due time, you can educate them on why you're going. The priority is not acceptance of your community, whether or not you go to therapy or not. The priority is that you seek the treatment that you need so you're well and sane to live long enough and be a valuable member of your family, your community. So the priority is to go. So I really want to encourage everybody that's battling with whatever thing you're going through, that go. When it comes to therapy, go. Whether your best friend believes in it, your mom and dad, auntie, friends, whether they believe it or not, just go. And even if you have to hide to go seek your therapist because your community will not understand, hide and go. Worrying about how to feel, that is the secondary stuff. So I just wanted to address that. But when it comes to policy, I know a lot of you, we really have to continue advocating for these policies that really support mental health and reducing the amount of violence in society. What I've seen, a lot of the challenge is funding. You don't get the Mariannes and the Monicas and the Sonias out there that are advocating. It's not a lot of people that do this just out of passion. There are people that will go out there and advocate. There are people that will go out there and educate. But we also need resources. So as we're going out there advocating, we have the resources to actually not just empower these people, but equip them with the young man I'm trying to get out of the street, the woman I'm trying to get out of the street. What happens after she is, prepped and encouraged to maybe it's a new beginning or whatever? What are the transitional programs that we have when we talk about, getting people out of the street? What are the transition programs we have for the man that's going through violence in his home, or the woman that's going through violence in her home? So we really need resources and systems as we advocate for policy. What exactly are in these policies that we're taking to Congress? What do these policies say? Do they have the right resources to fund transitional programs where we're not only saying that, let's get these people out of the street, let's prevent violence, let's prevent domestic violence, let's get guns out of the street. The next question is always, then what? If we don't create the then what, we're going right back where we started. And it comes with resources. So I always tell people, when you're out there with your congressman and advocating for policy, make sure you have the then what, you have transitional programs and the funding to back it. Because it's not about then creating this, this transitional programs and then so let's fundraise, let's do this, let's do that. No, that policy, as you're advocating, part of advocacy is also creating the resources that you need to fund the programs you're advocating for.
Before I go to you, Marianne, I want to go to Sonia right quick, because Sonia has to leave in a few. Sonia, you want to say any closing remarks, and how can people watching get in contact with you? Sonia? Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm still stuck at work. I have to get ready to go, but I'm in total support of therapy. I'm just going to reiterate again. I get it's not the norm. Mental health is being talked about more. It's starting to be more acceptable within the communities. At one point, we would laugh and mock those with mental within our own families, but now it's become more acceptable, meaning that we no longer ridicule these people. We're actually advocating, say, hey, this person, or I may suggest you might want to, we're doing something besides the abnorm. We're doing the norm, which is trying to push them to get some help. So I'm advocating now, for those that really feel like they're in need of help, um, get help. It doesn't make a difference what society says. It doesn't make a difference what family and friends say, how they think. When it's all said and done, the only thing you have to worry about is you. And if you're no, I always say that you're no good for nobody if you're not good to yourself. So if you're not able to help somebody else, you have to fix you up first. Let's start with you first. If you feel as though you need somebody to talk to somebody. There are resources out here, there's organizations out here. The only thing is, some of us don't know about them because we don't seek them. There's tons of resources, there's tons of centers out here, there's tons of help out here. It's just a matter of people wanting to get that help, if they want that particular help, or if they want a particular help. It's just go get the help. Right now, I'm still trying to, I'm still trying to, juggle this in my mind that, I literally have a name attached. So I've been diagnosed with what, PTSD. I don't like that, but at least I know why, I the things that are happening to me. And I don't like labels, but I do like the fact that I am recognized, that I am seeking help, I am trying to change. My son will not be forgotten. And what you're going through, for those that have, lost a loved one, like, for whatever reason, um, get help, please get help. Um, just get help. You know, going through it is kind of rough, it's hard, but I'm telling you, coming through it'll be it's a little easy. The mountains aren't as high to climb as when you initially started. And that's pretty much it right now.
Okay. All right. So how,
Yeah.
how can people get in contact with you if they want to, work with you or just talk with you?
I guess you can hit me up on my cell phone. It's starting to be an open thing right now. 610-842-8016. You can hit me up on Facebook. I'm Sonia Jones, SO''NYA Jones. That's pretty much it for right now.
Okay,
You know,
great. All right. Well,
you
thank you
know,
definitely
I,
for
I
being a guest.
appreciate, the ladies that are out here doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
We need more. I appreciate all that you're doing, and especially taking the time out, to share that with people. It is nice to hear, and I'm pretty sure that you're going to touch some lives out here that are following you. So
And so,
please
Sonia,
keep doing
I
it.
I was going to say, I'd like to add too, before you get off of the line, that you are changing lives as well. Just listening to your testimony and sharing your experiences. Um, it's powerful. You're going to be able to touch mothers who have experienced what you've experienced. So I would encourage you to keep sharing your story and keep being so transparent, because there are so many people who are dealing with the same thing that you're dealing with, and they need hope. So you can be there to give them that hope and encourage them to seek out resources as well. So thank you for what you're doing and your lived experience.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. Thank you, ladies.
Let us know about that play. I would like to come watch it.
I am so I am devoted so much of my time and energy into this. It's a combination of my son. Just real fast. There's so many organizations out here, you know, foundations for their loved ones. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do what other people are doing. If anything, let me contribute to those. But I did wanted to do this play to get people, especially when Texas erupted, when the mass shooting in Brooklyn erupted. It's like I said, I've done interviews, I've met with mothers, just mothers, and it was really hard for me to grasp their pain. And now I know that pain. I can tell you what it feels like to smack you, but until you actually been smacked, you'll never understand that pain. That's a pain that hopefully in my play I can get people to sort of kind of understand. And maybe if you just understand it a little, maybe someone might say, you know, I was thinking about putting a bullet in somebody. Maybe I may not, because it's not just that person that is affected. In reality, when you're caught, now you are affected. Your family is now affected. And I don't think everybody fully understands that this is a circle. It's not just one person that is affected. There are everyone is affected by this in more than one ways than others. So I'm hoping that I can get people, you know, who are out here doing something bad, that maybe they may just want to change their mind and say, maybe not today. And that's the goal. So I thank you, ladies. I thank you so much, Showtime, for giving me this opportunity. I appreciate all that you're doing out here, and keep up the great work.
All right, thank you. Thank you as well. All right, take
Thank
care,
you.
Sonia. All right. So, Marianne, I want to talk about, you know, domestic violence prevention. Is there such thing with the Delaware Coalition Against Domestic Violence? Is there like a domestic violence prevention program that you ladies work with?
Yes, and you know, as Sonia was sharing, part of the work of violence prevention is trying to interrupt violence from ever occurring. Certainly, when people experience violence in their lives, they seek help. It's part of that work is to try to prevent you becoming a victim again. But to prevent it from the outset is something that the coalition has been committed to focusing on for over the last 20 years. And we've been fortunate because our program in particular has received funding from the Centers for Disease Control to do violence prevention. But to Linda's comment earlier, there is 10 states currently across the country who receive funding to do this pilot work. And so we're working to build the programs and the evidence to support doing this education. But in Delaware, we have also been very fortunate because we do have very progressive thinkers around mental health and violence prevention. And so over the last 10 years, we've really seen an influx of resources and support placed in our schools, in particular in our school-based wellness centers. And we, through our partners downstate, are also offering healthy relationship curriculum throughout our schools in the state to try and help children learn how to address conflicts, how to use, you know, communication and your words to express your feelings. When you do feel offended and hurt, how to address that. Earlier in the show, we were talking, you know, when we began about how the instinct might be to retaliate and how culture might say to us, you aren't a real, you know, I've heard growing up in my house, you wouldn't be a real man if you didn't, you know, stand up to something. Right. And so how can we help people, young people in particular, develop healthier narratives about who they can be, what their lives would be like without violence? Do they have to resort to violence? Certainly there are some communities where violence is even more prevalent than just in the home. Perhaps there's community level violence. And so we know that our young people are having to navigate a variety of settings. And again, when we think of prevention, what kind of strategies and activities can we engage youth in to try to prevent them from having those exposures? So we now are involved with groups like Reach Riverside and the the LACC and others doing work, coaching boys into men and being allies and trying to make sure that people who are working with our youth, whether they be with sports or in other types of activities, that they're integrating these lessons on healthy relationships and having the ability to talk with youth about healthy relationships and being good bystanders. And when they see behavior, being able to call it out and intervene so that we can model healthier behaviors and working towards eventually a place where we don't have as much violence in our lives.
Okay, so before we close out, Monica, I want to give you an opportunity. If some people would say, well, what is the solution? Now, how do we stop violence? How do we stop all this from going on? So, I mean, I want to get your take on, what are some of the things that we can do to, I don't know if you're going to stop it all the way, but at the very least, reduce it.
I think that Marianne hit on something that was so important. I think prevention is key, right? Because we're already dealing right now with a society that's full of violence, particularly in American culture. There's a history of violence in our culture, right? So what can we do to reach children, teens, for preventive measures, for trainings, for solutions? What activities can we give teens so that, I know that you mentioned, Mariam, Reach Riverside, Boys and Girls Club, those type of centers that are alternatives for children that may get caught up in situations. My mom always says like an idle mind is the devil's workshop. I think that's so true when it comes to teens and young folks. I think if we give them the coping skills, we give them activities that they can be involved in. One of the things, since I've been here in Delaware, I've been so impressed with the amount of resources and just progressive thinking and programs. Like when I first started doing work in the schools, I'm like, wellness centers, I've never even heard of anything like this. Like there's wellness centers, there's behavioral health supports in the school. Now laws have been passed so that we're gonna have behavioral health supports even for the little guys in elementary school. Even like 211. I know during when the pandemic first started, I would always refer folks like out to call 211. Like that's a resource for, anything from mental health, prenatal care, substance use, like anything you can think of, homelessness, you can call 211. So there's so many supports through the state of Delaware and so many programs, but again, the lack of knowledge. A lot of times folks just don't even know that these programs are out here in the community. So it's going to be prevention. I think that's where we have to start with preventive measures with our young kids, not to give up on our older folks, but I think, it's just going to have to start with really taking the time and feeding into our children and our students.
Okay, so Monica, I want to stay with you in closing. How can people contact you? Once again, the services that you offer in the community, or for those who want to work with you, what's the contact information?
Sure. So on Facebook, I am under Monica Bamadili on Facebook. That's my middle name. So I know it's probably, but my name is Monica Shockley Porter. You can reach out to me through Capital School District. I do public relations. So for Capital School District, so you can reach out through the PR at Capital School District. And then also, if you are in LinkedIn, I'm also on LinkedIn, Monica Shockley Porter. So any of those mediums, you can reach out to me.
Okay, Marianne, Delaware Coalition Against Domestic Violence, website information, for those who may be victims of domestic violence, may be seeking out help, how can they contact you?
So I put it in the chat. I don't know if folks can see the chat or not, but if not, it's dcadv.org is our website. And my name and email is mkenville-moore at dcadv.org. And typically when you type in domestic violence in Delaware, our website is one of the first things that come up.
Gotcha.
And we have a complete list of resources and information about our prevention programming and our partnerships as well.
Okay, awesome. All right, Dr. Linda, close us out.
Well, thanks again for having me. Great conversations. I totally enjoyed fellowshipping with the rest of the ladies, exchanging ideas, learning and growing, because I believe, that's how we impact change. Well, I'm Linda Arrey on all platforms, and even my website is Linda Arrey. So anybody wanting to connect with me, just Linda Arrey.
All right, ladies, thank you for joining me tonight in Showtime TV. You're all wonderful and exciting guests. And more than likely, I'm going to invite you for a future program, maybe a different topic, but the invitation is always there. So thank you once again for being guests for this evening.
Thanks for hosting us. Have
All
a
right.
good night.
My
Those who are
pleasure.
watching,
Thank you.
please like, subscribe, and share. All right, have a safe week.
Thanks, you too.